Hi, 'tis the season and whatnot, right? Our show today has nothing to do with the holiday season, nothing to do with Christmas at all. But me and the wife spent a long time putting this together this week, our tree. I'll show it to you in a minute. But I thought since we spent all that time putting this tree together, I would put it in my video, I guess. What today's show is going to be, it's going to be in two sections. The first section is going to be what Jeff doesn't get, and we'll get to that in a minute. The second half will be like an arts and crafts section. Yeah, I'm going to do an arts and craft thing that's meant for young kids because why not? Thanks. I was watching an old Myrna Loy movie. Myrna Loy is one of my favorite actresses from the old days. This movie is probably from mid-30s, maybe early 40s, I'm not really sure. I don't even remember what the title was now. But in one scene, her and this guy that she is either dating or going to date, or anyway, her and this guy go to a boxing match. And two guys are in the ring, pounding the crap out of each other, and they show the people in the crowd being generally amused by the whole thing and being excited and thrilled by the fact that two guys are in the ring pounding the crap out of each other. And I thought to myself, now I know that was just a movie, but that situation happens in real life. And I thought to myself, I've never understood the entertainment value of that. I get it. I get it. There are people who like it, and there's, people enjoy watching it, and people want to go into a ring and pound the crap out of each other. That's fine. I have no problem with it. Me personally, I just don't get any enjoyment out of it at all. I've never been thrilled at all by watching a boxing match, let alone all the stuff that's around nowadays. It's like the WWE, which apparently isn't real, I guess. And then we go into this ultimate fighting stuff, where guys get into this octagon and this cage, and they can use whatever method possible, and one guy ends up just blood everywhere, and there'll be a guy kneeing him. And I have friends who go ape crap over that. They love that stuff. I go to poker games every now and again, and they talk about these fighters and what happened and who got almost dead and stuff, and with this big thrill. And I said one time, I just don't enjoy that stuff. And they're like, no, it's good, it's fine. No, I just don't. Even when I was in high school, when they made you wrestle in gym class, I hated that. Am I weird that way? I don't know. Well, this is the first edition of Things Jeff Doesn't Get, and I don't get professional fighting whatsoever. I know there's skill involved, and I know that these guys work hard, and I know that if they want to do it and people want to watch it, who am I to judge? Personally, I don't get it.
You make him a 5-course breakfast, but all he notices is the coffee.
For those of you who don't listen to my podcast, which is available on iTunes, by the way, last week I did the story of 3 childhood toys, three things I remembered from my past and how they came to be. I did the creation of the magic 8-ball, the fortune-telling deal. I did the slinky, right? And I also did Silly Putty. Now, while researching Silly Putty, I found that on YouTube there's like dozens and dozens of people telling you how to make Silly Putty at home. And actually, it sort of makes sense because Silly Putty is actually a very basic, simple thing. And it's actually credited to 2 different people who probably invented it at about the same time. It happened during World War II, and people were looking for a substitute for rubber because Japan had invaded most of the rubber-producing countries, making the United States short on rubber. So chemical companies were trying to find a way to synthesize rubber, so they didn't need the rubber trees and all that. And about the same time, 2 different guys came up with Silly Putty, and it was basically worthless as a substitute for rubber, and it took a few years before it caught on as a toy for kids. because it's only a couple things needed. So today I'm going to attempt to follow one of these ones I found online, and I believe the site I got all my measurements from was doityourself.com or something. No, about.com. So I'll credit them for this. But I mean, it's all over YouTube and the internet on how to do this. And if you want to follow along at home or want to do this later on, I'll show you what you need. I went to the grocery store and got all my ingredients. Unfortunately, I had to buy this huge box of borax. They didn't have any small boxes. Lucky this huge box is only like $4, so it's not too bad. But I only need a little bit, so that's sort of a waste. But then you need Elmer's school glue, and that's the only two ingredients really in it. But then I got dye too, in case you want to make your Silly Putty a color, and I think that's what I'm going to do. So, all right, our first step here, according to the instructions, is mix an equal part of glue with water. And the recipe I saw used a 1/4 cup of glue. Let's do the water first. 1/4 cup of water, and now 1/4 cup of glue. Of course, how do you get all the glue out of there? They don't tell you that part, do they? Alright, so we got a 1/4 cup of glue and we're mixing, and I said mix it really well. So you got to mix it up really well. And they say at this point, if you want to add some color to your Silly Putty, this is the time to put in the food coloring. So let's make ours a nice red. I put a lot in there. Let's make it a good red, huh? And we got to, ooh, look at that. Mix it up really well. Alright, once that's all mixed up, then what we want to do is take 1/8 cup of water, 1/8 cup of water, mix it with a teaspoon of borax. Mix it up really good. And then we just dump it in here apparently, and that's really all there is to it. And now there should be some sort of weird chemical reaction here. I can already feel it. It's starting to become gooey, like gack or goo, or apparently this is how they made that stuff they used to sell. Seems to be working. It's getting, I don't know if you can see that, but it's turning into this big hunky gooey disgusting blob. It's weird, the chemical reaction. I mean, you had two liquids. The glue and the water were pretty much a liquid. You dumped in the borax and water, which was a liquid. And then this weird chemical reaction happened. Now, I saw one guy, he would flatten it, flip it over, flatten it, flip it over, flatten it, just to get it all mixed together, because it's still, you can still feel the borax in there, so I think, you know, it's like that grainy. I don't know if that eventually goes away. But apparently this is how Silly Putty is made. It has that Silly Putty quality to it. The big question, if you remember Silly Putty from when you were a kid, Silly Putty would bounce. Technically it's a liquid, it's just a very thick liquid, but if you made it to a ball like I'm doing right now, it would bounce. Well, it bounces, it doesn't bounce. I remember Silly Putty bouncing quite high, but of course maybe try it in half. It doesn't stretch like Silly Putty either. Remember, Silly Putty, maybe it just needs to be mixed better, but Silly Putty you could stretch it if you did it slowly, but it would snap if you did it really quick. it's a fun experiment. I don't know if it's really like Silly Putty, like real Silly Putty. Maybe next week I'll go buy some Silly Putty and we'll compare the two. Huh? But I remember Silly Putty making those gaseous noises. If you can hear that on there, I don't know. Well, this is what I got. It seems as it sits, it's getting more and more like Silly Putty. You can stretch it, but it breaks a lot. And it might just be the amount I put in there or something. I don't have the exact amounts that real Silly Putty has. But it is rubbery. It does bounce a bit. I can't do it here because this is carpeted floor. But it's a fun experiment. It's weird to just think borax and Elmer's glue creates this goo. I tried to pick up newsprint with it and it didn't work. Because remember, Silly Putty could pick up newsprint. But I read during my research for my podcast that has a lot to do with the way newsprint's printed nowadays. It's a different process, and even real Silly Putty doesn't pick up much newsprint anymore. Anyway, this is Old Man Kelley. I'll try to come up with a craft a little different next time, okay? Thanks for watching. I'll be back next week with something different. Bye.